Welcome to the Be Your Soul podcast. I'm your host, Sky Bradshaw. Today, we are all about getting present, and each of the 3 segments will go a little deeper into the topic. So be sure to listen through to the end for helpful tips, tools, and guidance on how to do the work. In the Skylight segment of today's show, we get to chat with spiritual holistic educationalist, Victoria Brownlee. Before we dive into the Unclouded Heart segment for spirit messages of wisdom, let's invite ourselves to become present in this moment within our body, mind, and energy. Invite yourself to take some cleansing breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. And in through your nose and out through your mouth. And as you breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, allow your body to relax, 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 relax. Relax, 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 relax. Relax, 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 relax. And as you move into the space of complete relaxation, we open up your energies to the ancestors, loved ones, and friends to come together today to heal and guide you and lift you to the highest version of yourself in the light of the universe. So you may hear what you need to hear, know what you need to know, connect how you need to connect, and be what you need to be for your highest and best good, and the highest and best good of all involved, as we open up space to give and receive. Getting present. In a world that's geared towards distractions and built to make us want to shift into dissociation, it becomes harder and harder to focus on getting present. It's true, it is a juggling act, balancing the healthy self-care of not over-immersing ourselves in the overwhelming world, while also staying present and mindful in our energies. The thing that comes to me when reflecting on this is that getting present within ourselves doesn't have to be overwhelming. In fact, I believe it can be a tool to support the opposite. That when we truly get present within ourselves and our energy field, a safe energy barrier can be maintained to keep the overwhelm of the world from getting to us, while also allowing us to interact within that world in a healthy way. As I've said many times before, you can't heal what you won't see. And getting present not only brings an awareness of truth to our sense of being, but an acceptance of where we and the world are in this moment. This acceptance roots and grounds us into the truth so we can make choices, decisions, and actions that help the next moment be more in tune with our truth. That reduces the overwhelm because we're not seeing the past, present, and future all avalanching towards us at once. We are connecting in this moment to this moment. Getting present also empowers us to be able to know what is within our responsibility and what is beyond our responsibility. If we look out at the world events and it seems like we are so small that the history of the event and the future of the event are so much larger than us, then we are more likely to feel overwhelmed and not take any action. If we look at where we are in this moment and tune into our energy center, then we can look out and see where and how we can make a difference. Knowing that my small action in this moment, coupled with thousands of other small actions, can create great change. As Rumi said, you are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop. This shift or change of vantage point to getting present empowers us to know that while we are part of the whole, we are still whole within ourselves. That sense of security and self-trust can truly shift how we engage in our everyday lives and the world around us.
Production of the Be Your Soul podcast is made possible in part by Tarot by Sky, because it's your future. Tarot by Sky offers intuitive tarot and energy healing sessions, as well as life coaching, classes, spiritual guidance, and more. Offering sessions via Zoom, email, phone, or in the office in Greensboro, North Carolina, Sky is ready to help you turn change into growth. Book your session today on the web at tarotbysky.com and find her on Facebook and Instagram at Tarot by Sky. Coming up, Getting Present, a conversation with Sky and her guest, Victoria Brownlee.
Today, we're excited to welcome Victoria Brownlee, an instructional and personal development coach who also works as an investment officer for a foundation in Asheville. Her well-being and spiritual evolution ignited during her college years when she stumbled upon Oprah's Super Soul Sunday series. She credits this show for propelling her onto a path where practices like meditation, journaling, reading, and nurturing her inner self became top priorities. That led her to assist individuals in identifying their goals, devising strategies to achieve them, and offering support along the way. Welcome, and thank you so much for being a part of the show. I am really excited to talk about getting present with you and the way that that helps people live a more mindful and connective life. And so I'm super grateful to have you.
Thank you for inviting me. It's truly an honor, Sky. You know, we have a connection. We've always had this connection. So I'm excited to be here and overwhelmed with gratitude. Thank you.
Oh, same,
Thank you.
same. I say this every show, but like as I'm thinking of like, who represents that topic, or when I think of someone like, I think that person would be a really juicy guest to have on, like, what do they represent to me? And so to me, like part of that, like being present and like just holding that energetic space in your life, you create such a beautiful balance of like being human and being whole and, being who you are, as well as doing it in a way that represents that kind of centering and present moment thought process and allowing yourself to kind of hold those spaces in such a beautiful dance. I really love it.
Yes, I appreciate you for acknowledging that, because that's truly that authenticity to myself and what it means to me. And I think we should all own that. Like, what does presence mean to you? And so I appreciate you acknowledging that I truly connected with myself and what does it mean to me, and own that.
Mm-hmm. And we lead through example in that way. Whenever we realize like, we are not a compartmentalized being who is either this or that. We are the and, which says, I am human and I live in this authentic way, as well as, connect in this spiritual way. It combines in such, beautiful ways when we can just sit in that present positioning, authenticity. So when you think about getting present, what does it mean to you, and how is it important in your life? Like, how can you give us that sort of aspect?
Yeah, no, when I think about presence, I immediately think about just being mindfully aware of what's happening in the moment and what's happening in that experience. And I'm gonna take what you just said, because I'm gonna make it true to myself, because I'm a tangible person. So when I think about mindfulness, sometimes it can be abstract to some.
Mm-hmm.
And so I truly had to make it tangible to me. And so I think about presence being fully connected in the moment, mind, body, and soul.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to think about how many moments I can have throughout the day where I'm bringing myself back to, what do I feel in my body? What am I thinking about? And what does my soul feel? And so that's how I make that presence tangible to me, so that I can practice it throughout the day. I just think about like, what is my mind, body, and soul feeling, and how is that connection being made? And what I notice is that when I'm present, throughout my day, it's almost like it's giving me back my life.
Yeah.
It's giving me back my life because I'm not thinking about the past. I'm not thinking about the future and what I have to do, my to-do list, but I'm fully present in the moment. And the other thing that I feel like it does for me is it increases my connections with others.
Yeah.
Yeah. It increases my connections with others. And I just think about people that, and Sky, you have a really great way of doing this. And just like when I see people like Maya Angelou and Eckhart Tolle and just their presence in that moment, it's that connection. And so and what it does for me is as I'm present throughout my day, I notice that even when I'm like walking in the grocery store and I start practicing my mindfulness, thinking about my mind, body, and soul connection, and it could be some random person in the aisle and they're just like, how are you doing today? And this
Mhm.
conversation just sparks. And even with connection with my family, when I notice that I'm more present, that connection is deeper. People
Mhm.
are vulnerable, and it's almost like I just feel like my heart space opens up and I can feel others. So it really, those are just like the two highlights when I think about being present. That's what it does for me.
I
That's,
agree. And one of the things, as we as humans we really want is to be seen and to be heard.
Mhm.
And so the greatest gift that we can give to others is being in that present moment so we can see them where they are, so we can hear them in that moment, so we can connect in that authenticity. And I like to remind people, like, when we're our authentic self, then we get to see others as the same. If we're acting in a role, or we are being what we think they want us to be, or we are working under some pretense, then we're stepping out of our center, which means in order to meet us, they have to step out of their center too. And
Mhm.
then we're both, a character instead of our authentic self. So if, when we bring that present mindful center to ourselves, then not only do we get the advantage of seeing the world through authentic eyes, but we also get that gift of being our authentic self and inviting others to do the same. So it's really powerful. I think you described it beautifully.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. I like that. We can both show up as our authentic selves.
Yeah.
And do you feel like if more and more if we had the opportunity or the space to do that, I feel like just there would so many things would be different in the world today.
I agree, because the masking that happens because of our, false beliefs, or because we've learned behavior, or the different things, like we create these masks, the shoulda, woulda, couldas, which, like you said, puts us in the history or in the future, but it doesn't bring us in that present moment. And when we come to that, like, acceptance, this is where I am, who I am in this moment, non-judgment, just authentically me, then it really does invite people in. And we know inviting people in is the way that we create transformation. It's the way we create the ability to teach and learn. It's all of those
Yes.
things. And so it really can be beautiful when we are brave enough to stand in our authenticity. Then we give permission for other people to be brave and lay down that mask as well.
Yes. Yes.
So what drew you into mindful practice, and what solutions did it help create in your life? But we talked about a couple, but
I'm I read that question. I said, I'm gonna show up as my authentic self and I'm gonna be
mm-hmm.
vulnerable and tell my story. But before I say, I just want to say I truly believe that we are all different and our paths are different. And so when I share my story, it may not be the path that someone else decides to take, but it's what I knew I needed for myself. So I just wanted to just kind of put that out there.
Absolutely.
But I always, from childhood to teenager, when I was in college, I always had these moments where I needed to just be by myself in my space. I would go downstairs when I was living at home with my mom, and she was just like, "What in the world are you doing?" I would be in the basement for hours just listening to music, journaling, being alone. I could always speak to people when I was out in public and at school. I was extroverted, but I always just remember carving out at least an hour in my day where I was just by myself. If I had to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, I would wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And at the time, I didn't know what to call it. I just knew I was listening to my body. I knew that I needed that time for myself to go inward, to connect with myself, and to connect with my being. And so as I got older, life started to happen. And I just realized I started just going through the motions. I was just a mother, a wife, and just moving through the motions, checking the box. And I started to abandon that practice of going inward because I couldn't name it. And then I started watching Super Soul Sunday, and then I started to just had this as I was listening to the authors there, and if you aren't familiar with Super Soul Sunday, that was a series that Oprah shared, and she would have thought leaders across the world there, and they would share. And so I felt like I started to get even more of like a nudge that something was wrong. And I just believe that as I was learning, I wasn't putting it into practice. I was still just kind of going through the motions. You're supposed to listen to Oprah. This is what I'm supposed to do as I'm an adult, but I'm not really doing the work. And so finally, I just started to get to a place where I was having this debilitating anxiety where I had to pull over to the side of the road and I just couldn't, I couldn't function. I couldn't breathe and I didn't know what was happening. And I remember on one of the episodes, Oprah said, she said, the universe will nudge you. They'll drop little pebbles and you'll get this intuition that you need to change something. And then all of a sudden, just a huge rock is going to plop down. And I felt like those anxiety, that was my rock. And so I went that time, and what I knew to do, I just went to see a psychologist. I was like, something is wrong with me. And I remember the first time I met with him, he prescribed me something, and I was sitting in the car afterwards. And this is why I was giving this disclaimer, because I sat in the car and I just said, for me in this moment, I don't feel like this is my solution in this moment. And I said, there has to be. And then I started going back. I'm like, you've been watching all these leaders. Why don't you just look up, why don't you look up someone who's doing the work in this space? And so I started looking up what are some ways to deal with anxiety. And then I came across mindfulness-based stress reduction, and then there was a class here in Greensboro with this teacher named Rosanna who led me to the Deep River Sangha that was in Greensboro. And then from there, it just started putting me in these spaces with different leaders in the area where I started to practice and deepen my mindfulness and meditation practice. And I just remember just having this moment in one of my meditations where it was almost like I'm feeling it. Like I feel, and it was after about 2 months of practice where I was just like, this is it.
Mm.
This is, and I started to kind of put all these puzzle pieces together. And I was like, this is what I left my authentic self. I left it behind in childhood as I started to get, and we do that, right? As you start
Yeah.
into the emotional life, and I left that behind, and I said, this was always with me, and I believe in a higher presence. And so I felt like that higher presence was always telling me that this is what I needed for my body. And when I abandoned that, I had to come back to that. So that was my journey. As a child, I felt it, and I practiced it. I couldn't name it. And then as an adult, I had that rock throwing experience where I had to do something,
Mm-hmm.
and that was my journey. I couldn't name it. I couldn't tell you that that's where I was going to be. But what I can tell you is that my journey to meditation and mindful practices was one where I truly listened to myself along the way, and I trusted myself.
Yeah, that's important. And sometimes I tell people it's like remembering, because
Mm,
we have access to all of it. I think we're born with knowing what we need and what our highest and best good is. And then we layer these different messages and lessons and learned behaviors. And like I said, the woulda, coulda, shouldas on top of it. And then the beauty that I see in lots of people is that kind of remembering, which says like all the facades fall away. I am underneath. I forgot this beautiful self. And now I see myself again. And I don't want to leave it. I want to keep this where it is. And that's a beautiful story that you told in that process.
yeah, it was the remembering. Lauren Hill, she has a quote, and it says, "Deep in my heart, the answer was in me, and I made up my mind to define my own destiny." So when you said remembering, it made me think about that quote, because in one of my meditations, when I was young, when I was a teenager, I remember listening to that song and crying. I would listen to that song over and over again, couldn't identify it, but as an adult, I went back to those words in one of my meditations, and I said, it's within. It's
Yeah,
within.
it's true. So, what do you think is one common obstacle or misstep that people have when they're trying to incorporate kind of a mindfulness practice in their life? What do you think's a hard point? We talked about the idea of the woulda, coulda, shouldas, or like the layerings, but what do you think if someone was starting on that practice, or maybe when you decided to go, well, I'm taking the action to make it a practice? What do you think an obstacle might be for people, in your opinion?
One of the obstacles is it's a one size fits all. It has to look a certain way. And I always say, like, the start of it and how you start your practice. In my personal opinion, I don't think it looks the same for everybody.
I don't either. Yeah.
And I think that people have this, and I hear it all the time, because people say, how do I just can't do this. I can't. And I think you have to find what works for you. When do you feel most present?
Mm-hmm.
And start there. Because when you want to do it like Victoria, when you want to do it like Sky, you aren't staying true to yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you really have to figure out, and that's what I tell people, to start with that question. When do you feel most present?
Yeah.
When do you feel most present? When can you say, I feel like I have that mind, body, and soul connection? I feel like I'm fully aware of the moment, and start there, and start with an intentional practice there.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I would say is knowing the difference between your meditation practice and your mindful practices throughout the day. And what I had to do, and I'll make the analogy to exercising, because I love to exercise. So I kind of had to think about my meditation is like me going to the gym every day,
Mm-hmm.
right? I can go to the gym every day, work out for 30 minutes. But if I go throughout the day and I choose to eat cake, ice cream, 3,000 calories throughout the day, I am not going to hit my weight loss goal.
Mm-hmm.
And so I hear people say, that's one of the things that people say, like, well, I was meditating for 15 minutes every day. And I sat there, and it didn't help me throughout the day. And I said, that's the gym. That's your mind. That's your gym every day, right? Whatever you consider that meditative practice to be, where you can intentionally set that time aside to take your mind to that gym. And I'm putting up air quotes there.
Right.
But your mindfulness practices, those are your behaviors throughout the day to be intentional about. Because guess what? If you just do it in the morning and that's there, you may not see those results through. I'm not saying everyone is like that, but I
Right.
hear that from some people. And I'm like, you may not see those results because if you go back and you're like, okay, I'm done with this. And I'm going back
Right.
to the busyness of
Did
my
it. I can
day.
do whatever I want now. I did it.
Right. Right. So just think about checking out the box. I checked
Mhm.
off that box. But then it's like intentionally bringing yourself back to those mindfulness practices throughout the day, which is, I kind of think about like those behaviors. So
Absolutely.
those are the two things that I would highlight that I hear the most. There could possibly be some misconceptions about this journey.
Yeah, I agree with that. So I ask guests 3 questions every show, same questions each guest. And the first one is, what do you think it means to be your soul?
I'm going to start with the quote because I'm a huge quote person. Maya Angelou, she is one of my guides. I absolutely adore
Same.
and love love her. And so I want to start with nothing can dim the light that shines within.
Ooh.
And I start with that quote because I believe that being your soul is holding that space. And she's one of my teachers, and I just remember watching one of her interviews, and she said, you have to hold that space where no one else can touch.
Mhm.
That space in your soul that you just keep clean and pristine and you keep it true to you. And so I believe it's that light that's within us that's that steady throughout.
Mhm.
And I have to connect it to something higher than myself, whatever you may call it, whatever you may feel. And some may not even feel like you wouldn't even say it's higher, but something outside, something that is a collective that is beyond myself that I feel like our souls are connected to is what it is. And so it's that light. It's that light that's within, that burns within, that can't be dimmed by anything, any experience. Yeah.
I love that. That is very beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, what's one thing that you do to get your self care in no matter what?
One thing that I do that I get to get my self-care in no matter what, exercise.
Mhm.
Exercise and I would say definitely, and the reason why I say exercise is because some days I that is a part of my meditation. And that
Mhm.
is a part of my mindfulness because that is for me, that's an opportunity for me to connect with my mind, body, and soul. And I don't mean rigorous exercise every day. Sometimes it's just a walk. Sometimes it's a stretch, but it's a movement that I use to bring myself to the present and practice that mindful experience.
I love that. Yeah. Definitely moving the body in whatever way that we feel called to
Yeah.
just,
Sometimes it's a dance.
yeah.
I want to dance.
Yes.
And I just feel so much better. Sing and dance with the door closed, with the door closed.
So, what does centered and balanced feel like to you?
Centered and balanced feels like that I belong, in this, I'm gonna use another quote, that I belong everywhere I go, no matter where it is or who I'm with, as long as I never betray myself.
Whoa, that's a good one.
And that's again by my tell you she guides me in so many ways. But that's truly what I feel. And I had to sit with that quote a few times to really figure out what it means. But it means like that connection that we have everywhere and staying true to ourselves.
Yeah, it is what we talk. That's a quote that describes in one clean place exactly what we've been talking about, that authenticity of self.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It was so amazing spending time with you. And I super appreciate you bringing your wisdom to the show for everyone to kind of connect with. I'm sure there will be lots of people who relate with it. Can you let our listeners know where they can find you or any upcoming events that you might have?
Yes, so I am on Instagram and it is creating from within. And so that's one place that you can find me. Also, creatingfromwithin.com is my website. And I'm currently working on new content, giving little snippets of mindful practices and videos that I'll definitely be able to share with the community. And so the other thing that I have is coming up in November, and it'll be shared on my page as well. I'll start doing some meditation classes. So just be on the lookout for those on my page.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mhm.
And like I said, I'm so grateful to have you. And it was such a great conversation. I also want to send a shimmering ray of light of gratitude out to our listeners. I hope you feel it, dear listener, in your heart. We appreciate you choosing to connect with us and spending this time. And be sure to listen through to the end as the next segment brings forward tools and tips on how to do the work.
Production of the Be Your Soul podcast is made possible in part by Little Energies, a children's chakra-aligned oracle deck. Little Energies is made specifically for children to learn and support their own healthy energy system. These 24 chakra-aligned oracle cards focus on energy wellness through mantras, exercises, and envisioning. Find more information at littleenergies.com. That's LITTLEENERGIES.com. Coming up next, Sky shares a quick practice to help you get present.
In this segment, I offer tools and guidance that I have found helpful in my practice, and maybe you will too. This week, we will work on taking the time to get present and calling our energy home to our bodies. I call this exercise 60 Seconds to Self, and it is a practice I often use when I find myself fatigued, ungrounded, or off my center. Its simplicity is its beauty, so if this starts feeling complex, make sure to take yourself back to the simple steps outlined here. The truth in our energy is that through experiences, connections, well-intentions, and much more, we can scatter ourselves about, connecting to things that may not necessarily be ours. As you may have heard me say before, we are meant to observe, not absorb, when it comes to our energy field. That also means that we are meant to connect while not letting others collect our energy. We are at our very best when we are in our center. I also just want to remind you that you are whole, whether you are scattered or all put together. The difference in the two is the rate and health at which your energy will flow. The first thing we want to do is establish what our natural neutral center feels like so we can know what we are coming home to. A great way to do this is connecting with the bonus content on our YouTube with the 3-5 self-check-in meditation. Or if you have a regular meditation practice, then you may already know what your natural neutral center feels like. This exercise reminds me of starting a new jigsaw puzzle. Usually we lay all the pieces out to be sure that they are there, and then find our edges. Put those together and work inward until we see the full picture. This process is very similar to this, but looking at our energy system instead of a random landscape in Ireland. Next, we want to set up a practice of tuning in during 2 random times throughout the day, just to check in with ourselves and our energy field. When I do this, I usually choose 11:11 a.m. and 3:33 p.m. This check-in should only take about 60 seconds, maybe 2 minutes while you're trying to get used to it. So you can work it in at any point throughout your day. Set an alarm for the next 21 days that will go off at those times. When the alarm goes off, take 7 gentle breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth, feeling how your body feels, connecting to how your energy flows, and paying attention to your overall heart center, just bringing awareness to the self. Continuing on, take 7 more gentle breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth, and envision your heart center like a magnet, attracting anything that is of your highest, most positive energy. This magnet of heart center love will attract any parts of yourself that you've left in the world or the ethers. Any unhealthy attachments that may have been created will be unbound. And it will only attract things that are of you or for you. Finally, we take 7 more gentle breaths in through our nose and out through our mouth as we feel ourselves filled and full and whole with all we have called home. We can even connect to a mantra here, like, I am blessed, I am well, I am enough, I am healed, I am whole, I am balanced, I am connected. Then take 3 centering breaths to bring yourself back to mind, body, and energy, all as one and ready to continue your day. As I've mentioned before, it takes 21 days to create a habit. So you want this dedicated practice to last for at least 21 days. I would also suggest continuing this practice until it feels natural. If you still feel like you are missing the mark or clumsily connecting after the 21-day cycle, then you want to continue until the ability to sense yourself and call yourself home feels natural. Now that we know where home is, it's time to be able to call ourselves back when the road gets winding. You've created a habit of calling your energy home through participating for 21 days. So now you can use this method at any point when you feel stressed, tense, or anxious. Your body will remember the process, and all you need to do is participate, taking 7 breaths to become aware, 7 breaths to amplify and magnetize your heart center love energy, 7 breaths to call everything that is yours and for you home to feel full, and 3 breaths to center. I look forward to connecting with your balanced and centered self. Let me know how this exercise worked for you. May you be well, may you find peace, may you feel blessed, and may you be whole.
If you loved the Focusing Towards Progress bonus content for episode 15 that we shared on our YouTube, then you might want to tune in to our Patreon, where a video of this exercise is available right now. Our Patreon has early access listening and PDF worksheets to match each episode exercise for as little as $5 a month. As you move up in tiers, you can get masterclass level video tutorials, bonus meditation tracks, and more. Patreon is a great way to show your appreciation for the hard work and dedication that goes into bringing these messages to you. You can find all our episodes, our Patreon link, guest information, the virtual classroom, and more on our website, beyoursoul.org.